Hello, boss. Welcome to Healing with YB, aka Your Bossy. Here's a reintroduction of my why and my story. My parents immigrated from Laos to Thailand and then Thailand to the US, where they had me in 1995. We are Hmong, and we were an ethnic group that was in the Secret War, part of the Vietnam War. My parents had 4 sons and 3 daughters, including me. I'm the youngest out of the 7. I am a child sexual abuse survivor of incest. I was molested by my oldest brother at the age of 5 to 7, and it maybe stopped by the time I was in 3rd grade. It wasn't until I was 15 to 16 years old when I even realized I was SA'd. From there, memories came flooding in, and I started to put all the pieces together. Everything just made sense as to why my perpetrator was so mentally abusive to me growing up as well. By 2015, I wrote my very first unalived letter, but didn't go through with it, and decided to come out to my parents and my sister instead. Things didn't go exactly as I had hoped when I came out, and so I ran away from home. It didn't take very long though, as I then heard my dad's cry and him tell me, "I love you," for the first time in my life, which gave me hope, and I returned. He showed me his pain, and it was what kept me alive, knowing that someone cared and would support me. I simply carried on and just existed for the longest time, but existing started to feel like torture. I tried to remove myself as far from my perpetrator as I could, but every family hangout, every time he tried to start a conversation, every time he had something snarky to say, every time he pretended around people as if he was a good brother to me, it was like getting stabbed in an open wound. I started to experience extreme PTSD, which consisted of night terrors. It was just like the ones that you see in the movies where they'd sit right up and start screaming and sobbing. I knew I needed help, but I couldn't access the professional help, so I decided to read self-help books. In 2021 was when I opened Jay Shetty's book, Think Like a Monk, where I found forgiveness and my night terrors went away. I decided to forgive my perpetrator for all that he did, even though he never apologized. It allowed me to get rid of the hatred in my heart. I continued to work on myself from there on, learning to be more positive, empathetic, and kind. I tried very hard to live with gratitude and mindfulness in every words and actions, and I always tried to better myself. The universe then gave me an opportunity, and I decided to take a solo trip to Thailand. It ended up being a total of 6 months that I traveled alone around the cities of Thailand. I called it Project Finding Me, as I went to explore my purpose in life and work on being independent and in solitude. During this trip, I realized my calling was to share my healing journey and empower others. I came back, and by 2023, I came out to the public about being a CSA survivor. I held back the information about who my perpetrator was for many reasons. 1. I was afraid of it changing the innocent lives around this because of how people would treat them. 2. I was not confident in my memories as it happened when I was so young. 3. My parents. My parents asking me not to reveal him because of their own fear of reputation, abandonment, and my own partner abandoning me. I really respected my parents, and I never wanted to do anything to hurt them. 4. Fear. Lots and lots of fear around all areas. Fear of abandonment, fear of getting killed by my perpetrator, fear of being wrong, fear of destruction, and fear of pain. I held it against myself for the longest time that it would be my fault if things happened to certain innocent people if I revealed my perpetrator. Around the time when I came out in 2023, I found out there was another victim that had been SA'd by my perpetrator, and I didn't know what to do with the information. It wasn't my information to share. Even just saying there was another victim wasn't clear on my mind that I could share, because this was like reliving my own trauma. My own trauma of when I first realized it happened, and I didn't want the information to go out either. All that was on my mind after this was how sorry I felt for the victim and their journey ahead. I also thought of what it meant now, on how I see my perpetrator and what this means. I realized what I knew of my perpetrator was even worse than I had imagined, that he had an illness that needed accountability and help. I saw odd behaviors pop up in different areas throughout his life, but it wasn't until this very moment where all the pieces came together after hearing from the second victim. I decided to go through with my podcast, hoping that it opened the door to other doors. but it remained the same. I was suffering with this new information and continuously living in his shadows even after coming out as a CSA survivor. He continued to mentally abuse me during this time as well. He would be agitated by my actions or make snarky comments, but try to be nice to me around others. I began slowly working my courage to set boundaries with my parents. I was also going to stand up to my perpetrator the next time that there was another snarky comment, but the opportunity never came. I suffered so much to the point where I didn't even feel like there was life in me anymore. My PTSD came back in the form of anxiety and panic attacks that even led me to the ER in January 2024. Because of my commitment, I pushed through and finished the 4 seasons of my podcast by April 2024, but it wasn't even me. I felt like a fraud, a failure, and most of all, an imposter. In between here to the next event, my grandma passed away, and it was a hard loss for me because she was like a mother to me. I grieved like never before, and my focus was on the loss. But by August of 2024, as my wedding commitments with my partner and I started to move, things around my perpetrator started to come up again. I wasn't going to allow my perpetrator to be at my wedding, a moment where it should be centered around me and I shouldn't have to worry or feel horrible while celebrating. This led to opening the doors I was hoping for when I first came out about being a CSA survivor. On November 3rd, 2024, I stood up to my perpetrator and got him to confess he was guilty of molesting me in front of my immediate family. At one point, he did sound remorseful, but there were plenty of excuses and manipulation in there as well. Not everyone saw what I still see because not everyone experienced the abuse that I did. In a big sense, I lost my immediate family through this, as some chose to be neutral, and I couldn't stand with that decision after everything, especially now that the truth is confirmed. Initially, I did give my parents some grace as I understood the difficulty of abandoning one child for the other. They made it clear it wasn't a choice they were going to make anyways. However, in a way, them not choosing me felt like they actually abandoned me. 6 months later, a month before my home cultural wedding, I realized my dad wasn't on my side. He made his choice clear that it was his son for cultural purposes. I was extremely sad and I grieved, but I accepted this fate with my parents. I decided to go through with the Hmong wedding as one last thing. I'll go above my boundaries for my parents again in this lifetime. I know that although this was my father's decision, I know that there's sadness in his heart. In the way that he says hi to me, the way that he carried himself at my wedding, he wasn't the joking, funny, happy father I grew up with. My parents are survivors, and they've always only known of living in survival mode since the war. I can't blame them for what opportunity they didn't have or what courage they can't build, but I do want to allow myself to be saddened by their actions and how they failed me as my parents in this area as well. I don't know what the future looks like, but what I do know is I've chosen to choose myself above anyone else from here on out. So why am I sharing this, boss? What is my reason or my why for sharing my story? To show you resilience, strength, and courage. To help you navigate the complex things that don't have a black or white answer sometimes. To empower you and help guide you on your own healing journey. The complexity of trauma, generational trauma, of being a Hmong daughter, of being physically and mentally abused in any way, of losing family, of what forgiveness means, of how hard it is to build courage, of finding purpose in life, of seeking help, and of what empathy and healing looks like. I've been there and I'm still there. I want to share this process and everything I've learned because I know I'm not alone in my troubles. I know when I was younger and not as wise or mature or as knowledgeable as I am today, I especially needed someone like me to be there for me. My why is to create a voice for our inner child to be seen and a path for our adult self to walk. As I feel abandoned and I feel that my family has failed me even in the end, I seek out into the world to create my own family, to prove that even if the world turns me down for coming out just like what my parents predicted, that I can create a world for a CSA survivor of incest like me. My voice will no longer be silenced, and every time I speak, I will speak my truth with lots of courage, strength, kindness, and a little bit of spice if I have to. I will build a community, a family of uplifting and empowering souls that understand and believe in one another. As a Hmong daughter of CSA by incest, I will create my own safe space for my inner child, and a safe space for you if you wish to put your trust in me. My father told me I was different, and not in the inspiring way, but in the way of like you don't belong. And despite his words, yes, I am different and I'm okay with that. Even if I don't belong for speaking my truth for my inner child, my adult self will create a world where both of us will belong. Thank you for taking time to listen till the very end, and I hope that you stick around, boss. Bye.